Welcome to Rauta's Reviews. I am Jerry and this time we travel to Hungary with a band called Witcher, a band that has been active since 2010. So 14 years and quite a few albums and other releases in. Now we have a new EP which is technically as much as full album when it comes to the length and all. Before we get into the details of music, let's do a little bit unboxing and show what I got. For example, this one comes with a couple of stickers. Nothing too common these days, unfortunately, but I like it because I like when there's something special besides the obvious thing, the album in question. That this is not album in fact, which you can already, which I already mentioned, and you can see this is not a traditional thing because this is actually a interpretation of various classic themes here, 7 tracks and almost 40 minutes in total. And that alone is more than EPs full of material. But let's talk about that. Witching black metal. Now I will challenge this comment here a little bit. Not so much for Witcher's traditional style, which is kind of a pagan black metal coming from Hungary. And I gotta say, I like their atmospheric style because it's very genuine. It's not copying Nordic bands or any other scene for that matter. However, this one is a little bit different and little bit me actually exaggerating the things, or, you know. This comes with 2 people, Roland and Carola. And here they are, guitars and drums, keyboards. Now you don't see mention of vocals, and that is for a reason, because this is instrumental release. So as mentioned, the band has out a few albums, 3 in fact, some EPs, splits, what have you. So this one, I'm not trying to properly mention it, but let's try it. Boszork symphoniac. I could pretty much understand the symphoniac part, symphonic. And that's the deal here. That is either a blessing in disguise or a curse, depending on the viewpoint of the listener. So as you can see here, these are cover songs. First, we'll go with the Hymn of Cherubim by Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky, a famous classic composer. Then you have Georg Friedrich Händel, Sarabande. Åsestöd, The Dead of the Åse, Edvard Grieg, Norway. Then you have Frederick Chopin with Spring Waltz. And then you have Ralph Vaughan Williams cover, 3 Shakespeare songs, and Carl Orff cover, Carmina Burana, which is of course very famous for a lot of people. A lot of people even know it for, you know, Manowar takes and all. The thing here is, a lot of these things are famous for their own sake. Orchestrated classical music. And then there's a bonus track, Summer Night Melancholy. As you can see, all instrumental, hence no mention on the vocals. And that alone is going to make me challenge this one a little bit. Can you really call it black metal when it's all about instrumental music? Not just instrumental music, but not exactly original recordings. It's more like instrumental metal interpretations of classical music. Let that sink for a bit. You remove vocals out of the equation, which is one of the trademark things in black metal, especially when people come for ideological side. You have to have the meaningful lyrics. There are no lyrics. You have to have the kind of a trademark vocals to stand out from the melodic death metal, which is often very much like black metal. I mean, think about the 90s stuff, with just a little bit different setting vocals, themes, and what have you. So when you remove these from the equation, what is left for black metal? Is it just black metal because the band itself is black metal band? But when these songs are no black metal compositions, originals or otherwise, you have no vocals, you have no lyrics, you get my point. Now, another thing is whether these are good or not, because making classical symphonic music or classical music in general something that is able to be done just by a keyboardist, guitarist and drummer, I'm gonna challenge it a little bit. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I like what Witcher is doing, and I like their passion. I like their ambition. I like their megalomania to a certain degree. But I would say now they have taken too big a mouthful. This is because classical composition are made for big orchestras. That means you have lots, like dozens and dozens of different instruments with their given musicians and all. And that alone makes the music sound big, fantastic, massive in general. Now when you use kind of trim it down so that the keyboard is taking care of all the classical instruments, and then you kind of twist those, whatever, violin, cello, who knows what parts, into guitar sound, electric guitar with distortion and all, it's not going to sound the same. Let me put it this way. A lot of metal bands, especially the symphonic metal bands, have tried to go to the moon, making their own symphonic things. This have happened with bands like Emperor or Dimmu Borgir or Ihsahn, which, try to create some of those magical moments or classical compositions, songwriters, whatever, into the form of metal music. And most of the time, pretty much all the time, it doesn't really work. I mean, unless you're really, really skilled and you have all the vision, like, wow, I'm able to write all the different instruments right there and I'm gonna take it care, like conducting the whole experience to a different level. You're not gonna cut it just because you have a guitar, drums, keyboards, what have you. Now, if you go with different ways, like in this case, it's not even that easy to begin with, because then you're kind of stripping down all the instruments and you're like, okay, how about we just replace brass instruments with keyboards? How about we just, strip down the massive percussion things instead of drums? You get the idea. So, of course, the original songwriting talent is still there. But when you kind of stream it down, it's almost like you start whistling to a black metal song. It doesn't really sound like the same. I mean, of course, the classic riffs are right there. But if you just like... Yeah, we know it's Dark Throne, but it doesn't really sound like a black metal one. Which means a black metal version, instrumental as such, doesn't really sound like the massive orchestrated version. So it feels like diluted. It's almost like you take a beer, drink half of it away, put some water in it and pretend you have a full pint. Technically speaking, you have a full pint, but it's literally a watered down version. And unfortunately, that is what Witcher is doing. I hate to be this negative Joe, but somebody has to say it out loud. This doesn't really work. Unless you're a big fan of music done in the language of metal and you're able to digest as it is for the face value and all, being metalized versions, instrumental and all, of the classical compositions. So who is this for? Probably more so for the fans of the given classical compositions and the fans of black metal who are able to just like give it a free pass. Like, okay, I'm gonna turn a blind eye and I don't care if it doesn't sound massive because I like so much the original compositions that I want to hear the cover versions of that stuff. And those who are more fans of metal music, no matter what the original stuff is. So don't get me wrong, the original compositions are really cool and all, but as metalized versions, you really have to be kind of turning the blind eye to the very fact that it doesn't really sound massive. And when you don't even have the vocals here, which is kind of a given because of the original compositions, it's gonna sound diluted, watered down version. So unfortunately, this one is not that good. Probably fun to play, probably fun to experiment with that, with keyboards and guitars and all. But in terms of a release, unfortunately, I'm not gonna say, be dishonest here and say it's good, because it's not. It's mediocre at best, and to be honest, I'd rather listen to any of the Witcher original material over these cover songs for the given reasons. But those who are fans of the style, those who kind of want to hear metalized versions, those who are big Witcher fans probably need to get this anyway, just to fill their collection or otherwise. But for other reasons, I wouldn't say start listening Witcher with this release. Go for the original recordings and you'll be at a happier place. This is Rauta's take on the stuff. Feel free to disagree. Off you go. Bye bye.